Every time you speak about your next move, your energy leaks. Every detail you share becomes fuel for someone else's doubt, envy, or sabotage. Power fades when it's exposed too early. Master the art of silence, because when you keep your life private, your progress multiplies. Speak less, move more. Let your results whisper what your words used to scream. Protect your peace by guarding your story. That's where your strength begins. In a few moments, I will teach you how to protect your peace by keeping your plans and progress private. The more you share, the less you build. You may think that speaking your plans out loud gives them power, that by telling others you anchor yourself to action. But has it truly worked? Or have you noticed that the more you talk about what you're going to do, the less you actually do? There's a silent strength in holding your ambition close. When you speak too soon, you invite opinions, resistance, and the temptation to feel satisfied by mere intention. Words become a substitute for action. Approval becomes a trap. And suddenly, you're performing your life instead of building it. A seed does not speak as it pushes through the soil. It grows in silence, and the world sees the result when it breaks the surface. You are no different. Your goals don't require applause. They require grit, consistency, and privacy. So hold your vision in quiet confidence. Protect it like a fire in the wind. Let people see the results, not the rehearsal. Ask yourself, do you want recognition for planning or victory from execution? Imagine you're sculpting a masterpiece, every stroke, every curve, done alone in the quiet. Now imagine stopping every 5 minutes to show someone your progress. You'd lose the rhythm, the magic, the momentum. That's what you do when you speak too much too soon. Guard your plans, build in silence, let the world witness your results. Then they'll know what you were working on all along. Every time you explain, you invite doubt. You may believe that sharing your plans earns you support, but what often follows is not encouragement. It's skepticism, warnings, and doubt disguised. People do not doubt you because they know your path. They doubt you because they can't see your vision. And every time you explain yourself, you dilute your own belief. You begin to question your direction. You start rearranging your dream to make it palatable. The more you tailor your vision to others, the less it fits your soul. You don't need permission to chase what's burning inside you. You need resolve. And resolve grows in solitude, not under the weight of constant justification. You aren't weak for wanting approval. It's natural, but it's dangerous because it's addictive. And soon, you'll confuse nods for progress and likes for milestones. So the next time someone asks what you're building, smile, nod, and say, "You'll see soon." Ask yourself this: if no one approved, would you still pursue it? Imagine a man building a boat in his backyard. People pass by, they laugh. They don't see water nearby, so they assume he's wasting time. But one day he wheels it to the river, sails into the horizon, and everyone watches, silent and stunned. That could be you if you keep rowing in silence. You owe no explanations, only execution. Silence builds pressure, and pressure builds power. There is power in tension, not the kind that explodes, but the kind that builds. Like steam inside a sealed engine, like a bow drawn before release. When you keep your vision to yourself, it builds pressure. Discipline forms. The desire to act increases. And when you finally move, you do it with force, unapologetic, focused, and fierce. But speak too soon, and the pressure leaks. You feel like you've already achieved something just by saying it. You trick your mind into thinking talking is doing, and you rob yourself of that full force momentum. The great achievers of history understood this. They didn't need to announce their plans. They worked, then arrived. Their silence was not secrecy, it was strategy. Are you building pressure, or are you letting it escape through your mouth? Imagine a spring tightly wound, held back, not because it's afraid, but because it's preparing. That's your energy when you stay quiet, coiled, ready, precise. Let the silence work in your favor. Let it be the tension before your triumph. You must learn to withstand the unknown one. Of the hardest lessons in life is this: not everything you start will be understood, especially in the beginning. When you share your early steps, you invite early judgment, and judgment often kills momentum. If your vision is young, it is fragile. Just like a plant in its first days of life, it needs warmth, water, and above all, protection. You must learn to build without being seen, to walk without needing witnesses, to act without applause. You're not hiding, you're fortifying. People will ask, "What are you doing? Where are you going? Why are you changing?" And it will tempt you to answer. But understand, your progress is not a performance, it's a process. When you can move forward without needing the world's nod, you've crossed into mastery. Imagine you're baking bread from scratch. The dough rises in darkness. It takes time. Opening the oven too soon ruins it. Your life is no different. Let it rise, undisturbed. You don't owe updates, you owe results. Let your silence be a mirror. The quieter you become, the louder the world begins to notice. Not with applause, but with discomfort. Not because you're begging for attention, but because your stillness makes others face the chaos they've been avoiding. Your silence, calm, focused, disciplined, isn't passive. It's powerful. It stirs something in others, not always admiration, often unease. Because when someone sees a person grounded, undistracted, walking forward without explanation or announcement, it forces a question they'd rather not face. What am I doing with my time? This is the tension your quiet presence creates. You don't even have to speak for it to echo. You show up, do your work, stay on your path, and without meaning to, you shine a light on everything they're not doing, so they react, not to you, but to the reflection they can't ignore. Your discipline becomes a spotlight. Your restraint becomes a contrast. And for many, it's easier to question you than confront themselves. They'll prod, they'll gossip, they'll joke, anything to make you break your silence and explain yourself. Because if you speak, maybe they'll feel justified in their noise. But if you stay silent, if you keep building in peace, then their excuses collapse under the weight of your consistency. Understand this deeply. People are rarely reacting to your truth. They're reacting to the way your truth threatens the lie they're living. So stop wondering why they doubt you. It's not your responsibility to fix their discomfort. You're not their mirror. You're your own mission. Your silence is not a void. It is structure, intention, and discipline forged over time. And it is not your job to narrate your effort for those unwilling to walk their own path. Let them wonder. Let them speculate. Let them talk. None of it matters. Because you are not here to be understood. You are here to build. Visualize yourself climbing a cold, brutal mountain. No crowd, no cameras, just you, the wind, and the next step. It's hard, it's lonely, but it's real. And when you finally reach the peak, exhausted but triumphant, what the world sees is only the silhouette. They didn't see the struggle, they didn't feel the chill. But the peak belongs to you, not because of what you said, but because of what you endured. This is the power of quiet. It doesn't ask to be seen. It demands to be respected. The ones who build in silence leave behind monuments that need no explanation. You don't have to raise your voice to make an impact. When your life is proof, silence becomes a legacy. So stay the course. Keep your focus. Let your silence speak, and let it speak loudly. Every voice you hear competes with your own. There was a time when your thoughts felt like still water, pure, undisturbed, and unmistakably your own. Your goals lived quietly within you, untouched by judgment, unswayed by fear. But the moment you gave them voice, something began to change. You thought sharing would empower you, that it would attract support, encouragement, maybe even admiration. Instead, what came was noise, a flood of opinions, warnings, second guesses, and casual dismissals cloaked in concern. And gradually that inner flame, the voice that once lit up your path, grew dim under the weight of what others thought. You may not have noticed it at first. A friend's offhand comment, a mentor's caution, a parent's fear. You took it all in, believing you were being wise, open-minded, receptive. But what you didn't realize is that with every piece of advice that didn't match your soul, a little dust settled on your vision. And now you hesitate, not because you don't believe, but because their fears are echoing louder than your conviction. You must reclaim that voice. That is the essence of true growth. It's not loud, it's not broadcasted, it's not glamorous, but it is real. Most people want to be celebrated before they've done anything worth celebrating. They chase recognition before results. They want praise for potential, applause for ideas, and admiration for declarations. But potential is not power. It's the suggestion of power, not the reality of it. You don't change your life by being impressive in conversation. You change it by being relentless in execution. So when you're tempted to announce your next step, your goal, your comeback, your big plan, pause, sit with it, build in silence. Don't rob your future by seeking validation too early. Prove it with your results, not with your promises. Because every time you speak instead of act, you dilute the energy that should be used to create. Don't mistake motion for progress. Don't confuse planning with building. And don't ever believe that being seen is more important than being ready. Respect is not given to those who speak well, it's given to those who live well. If you want to be respected, become someone whose results speak louder than any announcement you could make. Make your life your proof. Let others discover your strength, not because you pointed it out, but because they saw it. Unavoidable, undeniable in everything you do. Imagine two men. Both claim they're committed to transformation. One talks daily about his plan, what he'll do, why he'll do it, how it's going to change his life. His words are filled with certainty, but his actions, sporadic, conditional. He waits for motivation, applause, or the perfect moment. The other man says nothing. He just shows up. Quietly, every morning, while others sleep, while others scroll, he trains, he reads, he works. No announcement, no performance, just steady, deliberate movement. Weeks pass, then months. The first man has stories, the second has strength. Which one are you? In the end, the answer doesn't lie in what you say, it lies in what you repeat. Quietly, daily, unshakably. That's where transformation lives. So, talk less, move more. Make silence your partner and discipline your guide, because when the world finally sees what you've become, it won't be because you told them. It'll be because you gave them no choice but to notice. Confidence that needs approval is not confidence. You say you believe in yourself, but the moment a new idea sparks, a new plan forms, the first thing you do is speak it aloud, hoping someone nods, hoping someone smiles, hoping they say, yes, you can. You don't realize it, but in those moments, you're not affirming your belief, you're borrowing it. You're reaching outward, looking for permission, for agreement, for applause. And yet, true confidence roots. It stands alone, quietly, firmly, without needing to be echoed. There is a subtle trap hidden in constant sharing. You think you're being open, transparent, accountable, but more often, you're asking the world to vote on your worth. You're holding your vision out like a paper in the wind, whispering, this is what I plan to do. What do you think? And if they hesitate, you hesitate. If they question, you flinch. Their doubt becomes your doubt. Their pause becomes your paralysis. This is not belief, it's bargaining. You're negotiating your destiny, piece by piece, with people who were never meant to be part of the contract. And here's the harsh truth. Confidence that depends on applause isn't confidence. It's dependency, dressed in the language of dreams. It's fragile. It breaks easily, because every cheer can turn into a chuckle. Every "you've got this" can become "I told you so." When you constantly tie your courage to other people's voices, your strength becomes a puppet dancing or slumping, depending on whether the crowd claps. So what do you do instead? You build quietly. You protect your fire. You don't owe the world the early chapters. You don't have to explain the plot before the story is finished. Let them wonder. Let them guess. Let them stay distracted while you work in silence. Because when the foundation is deep enough, when the roots have gripped something unshakable, then and only then will the world see what you've known all along. Picture this. You're building a fire in the dark. It's cold, it's quiet, the wood is damp, the wind unkind, but you kneel down, shield the spark, and nurse it slowly. It catches, grows, begins to glow. Now imagine if every time it flickered, you turned outward and said, look, do you see it? Isn't it amazing? All that breath, all that reaching for attention only ends up stealing the oxygen your fire needs to burn. And in time, what might have roared dies quietly. That's what happens when you speak too soon, when your energy goes into being seen rather than becoming. The flame of belief is delicate at first. It needs stillness, protection, repetition, not exposure. Let it grow in private. Let it build heat, layer by layer, until it no longer flickers, it radiates, until the light and warmth are so strong that the world can't help but feel it. When that moment comes, you won't need to announce yourself. The results will speak. The transformation will be too clear to ignore. And those same people who once needed convincing will ask how you did it. But by then, it won't matter, because you won't need their permission. You never did. So keep your belief to yourself, not out of fear, but out of respect. Respect for your vision, respect for your discipline, respect for the process that builds legends, not headlines. You are not here to entertain with empty talk. You are here to prove quietly. Let your work whisper first. Let your results roar later. Let the world feel your heat when it's ready, not when you're uncertain. That's the difference between hoping and knowing, between waiting and becoming. And that is the kind of belief that cannot be broken. Privacy is a discipline, not a weakness. Most people misunderstand silence. They think that if you're quiet, you must be unsure, lost, uncertain, maybe even weak, as if every strong man must shout, as if every confident woman must explain. But silence is not the absence of knowing. It is often the evidence of mastery. It is the discipline to hold your vision close when the world demands a preview. It is the choice to build, not broadcast. Silence is not weakness. Silence is wisdom. It is the mark of someone who does not need noise to feel valuable. It's easy to speak about dreams. It's easy to announce your plans and chase applause. But to sit with your ambition, to let it grow, shape, and mold you in the quiet, requires a kind of strength that few possess. Most want their effort seen before it's complete. They want validation as they move, not after. But the strongest transformation always begins in privacy, not performance. Privacy is not about secrecy, it's about clarity. When you keep your process sacred, you give yourself room to think without echo. You remove the external noise that clouds your internal compass. You make space to fail without shame, to adjust without pressure, and to grow without distraction. That silence, that solitude, becomes a forge where your rough ideas are heated, hammered, sharpened, until they are no longer ideas, but instruments of execution. Ask yourself this, honestly, are you seeking growth? Or are you chasing attention? There's a difference. Growth is quiet. It's ugly. It's filled with missteps, late nights, and uncomfortable reflection. Attention is loud. It's polished and posed and shared for approval. If you're addicted to attention, you'll rush the process. You'll try to look finished before you've done the real work, and in doing so, you'll trade depth for decoration. Imagine a blacksmith learning to forge a sword. In public, every slip of the hand is magnified. Every uneven edge is mocked. The crowd watches, not to support, but to critique. The pressure makes it hard to breathe, let alone focus. But in private, in a quiet forge, free from the glare of others, the blacksmith can fail without fear. He can try again and again. He can burn his hands, dull the blade, break it in two, and learn. Until one day he holds something not just sharp, but true. A blade that gleams because it was crafted with patience, not performance. This is the forge you must choose, not the one with an audience, but the one with freedom. Because freedom is found in silence, in keeping your vision to yourself until it's strong enough to survive judgment. You don't owe the world your process. You don't have to prove you're trying. The results will tell that story for you when the time is right. Let your silence be your sanctuary, not your prison. Let it be the place where your focus sharpens, where your ambition matures. Don't let the world rush you into proving something you're still learning. Protect your vision like a flame in the wind. Shield it, feed it, give it time, because one day that small, quiet flame will become a fire no one can ignore. There is power in the man who walks forward without explaining. There is power in the woman who keeps her plans close until they're complete. That power isn't loud, but it lasts. It builds quietly until it becomes undeniable. So next time someone mistakes your silence for fear, smile. Let them think what they will. You are not hiding, you are refining. And when you're ready, you won't have to say a word, because your life will say it all. Not everyone deserves a front row seat. You've been generous, maybe too generous. You've opened the doors to your soul, laid your plans out like blueprints, bared your struggles like open wounds. You've spoken of your hopes with full-hearted sincerity, trusting that others would treat them with care, and some did, but not all, because not everyone who listens is there to support. Some sit in silence, nodding while secretly hoping you fail, not out of hatred, but because your progress makes them uncomfortable. Your movement highlights their stagnation. Your courage exposes their excuses. There are people who collect your words like weapons, waiting to use them when you're most vulnerable. People who pretend to cheer but are quick to whisper doubts behind your back. People who simply cannot comprehend what you're building because they've never tried to build anything themselves. And yet, you've let them in, into the inner chamber of your life, the sacred space where visions take form, where identity is sculpted. You've allowed them to linger in that space with muddy feet and noisy opinions, hoping that your openness would be met with understanding. But here is a hard truth. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Not because they're evil, but because they're unqualified. They haven't earned the right to hold your plans, let alone judge them. And every time you explain yourself to someone who doesn't have the eyes to see or the heart to care, you lose a little power. You dilute the sacred energy that should be fueling your action, not defending your intent. The more you speak, the more you scatter that energy. You begin to rewrite your ideas based on reactions. You start to question your direction because someone frowned. You let the wrong people enter the theater of your mind and critique a play that's still being written. Their voices become background noise that blurs your vision. Their doubts become internal whispers that make you hesitate. You must learn to be selective, not out of fear, but out of deep respect for what you're becoming. Silence is not secrecy, it is strategy. Privacy is not withdrawal, it is wisdom. When you hold your mission close, you protect its roots. You give yourself the space to nurture it, refine it, strengthen it before it is tested by the outside world. Imagine you're planting a rare seed, something ancient and powerful, something that takes years to bloom. Would you let just anyone walk through that garden? Would you let strangers handle the soil, step on the shoots, laugh when the progress seems slow? Of course not. You would fence it in. You would water it quietly. You would watch over it with care. And you would wait, patiently, protectively, until the day it breaks through the earth with undeniable strength. Your dreams are that seed. They need protection. They need solitude. They don't need validation before they grow. They need commitment. And your job is not to convince the world that what you're doing is worthy. Your job is to do it, to stay rooted in your process and let the results be the loudest thing you ever say. This doesn't mean you isolate. It means you curate. You choose your audience with the same discernment an artist uses to reveal their masterpiece. You don't hang sketches in the street. You wait until the painting is complete. Then, and only then, do you show it to those who will appreciate its depth. Not everyone will, and that's fine, because your life is not a public show. It is a sacred journey. Every time you keep something for yourself, you are not withholding. You are protecting. You are honoring the silence in which transformation thrives. You are giving yourself the gift of undisturbed growth. You are saying to the world, I am not here for applause, I am here to become. So speak less, not because you are hiding, but because you are focused. Build in silence. Water your roots. Let the soil of your discipline grow deep before anyone sees the bloom. And when the time comes, when your tree stands tall, full of fruit, unshakable, then let them see, not to prove, but simply because the work now speaks for itself. Choose your audience wisely. Not everyone is meant to walk with you. Not everyone is equipped to hear your truth and still protect your peace. Keep your inner world sacred. Let it be yours. Let it be strong. Let it be ready before you open the gates. Because your life was never meant to be a stage. It was always meant to be a sanctuary. The more you speak, you don't lose momentum in one loud crash. You lose it in whispers, in casual conversations, in innocent disclosures, in small, unguarded moments when you speak of your ambition instead of acting on it. It doesn't feel like much at first. You tell a friend about your plan. You explain your goal to a colleague. You share a future vision in the spirit of excitement. But with each word, something subtle shifts. A little confidence slips out. A bit of urgency dissolves. And without realizing it, you've begun to let your energy leak, one drop at a time. You think the danger lies in failure, in resistance, in the difficulty of the climb. But more often it lies in leakage. Momentum rarely disappears in a single blow, it erodes. And the erosion often begins the moment you speak too much, too soon. What was once a burning engine of intent slowly becomes steam, released before it could push the wheels forward. Words, when used carelessly, become escape hatches. They let out the pressure you should have kept inside. They give you an illusion of progress, a feeling of motion, a premature reward. You talk about your routine, your vision, your strategy, and it feels good. It gives you a rush, as if you've done something, but you haven't. The wheels haven't moved. The stone hasn't lifted. All you've done is narrate the idea of movement while standing still, and that narration becomes a trap, because every time you explain yourself, you gain satisfaction without substance, and satisfaction is the enemy of action. It convinces you that your dream is already halfway done, just because others nodded while you described it. The applause, the approval, even the mild encouragement, they all become surrogates for progress. Slowly the fire cools, you lose the edge, and one day you wake up wondering where your hunger went. There's a hidden power in silence, not secrecy born of fear, but privacy born of strength. When you hold your vision tightly, when you let it live inside you without scattering it through conversations, you protect it. You preserve its shape, its force, its urgency. You give it a chance to mature in the dark, to harden into resolve before it's exposed to the weather of other people's doubt, or worse, their applause. Applause can be just as dangerous as criticism, because it feeds your ego before your work has earned it. It tricks you into thinking the stone has moved when it hasn't even been touched. And the longer you stand there talking about your strengths, your plan, your certainty, the less likely you are to actually act on it. Ask yourself, are you building your dream or narrating it? Are you sculpting your future with the tools of discipline and movement, or painting imaginary outcomes with words? Imagine a man standing before a massive stone. He wants to lift it, move it, carry it across a field to prove his strength, to test his limits. But instead of lifting, he describes it. It's heavy, he says. I'll need to brace my legs this way. I'll grip it from the bottom. I'll breathe out as I push. He tells everyone, over and over. He's certain about the plan. He's proud of it. Days pass, he's still talking. The stone hasn't moved an inch. That's what you risk every time you speak instead of act. That's what happens when you trade doing for describing. The truth is, your future doesn't need a narrator. It needs a builder, a doer, a mover, a quiet force that doesn't spend its time convincing others, but compounding its effort. You don't need to explain where you're going. You need to go. Every word you spend explaining is a step you didn't take. Every conversation is energy you could have invested in motion. You don't need external agreement to validate internal drive. Your purpose is not up for public debate. There's a reason some of the most effective people are the quietest. They're not distracted. They're not leaking energy. They're focused. Their vision is whole because it's undisturbed by opinion, untainted by preemptive applause. Their fire burns because they haven't let the steam escape. They're not waiting to be seen. They're working to arrive. You have to become like that, ruthless with your energy, protective of your direction, selective with your words. Don't describe the stone. Lift it. Don't perform the idea of progress. Move. Even a single step is louder than 1,000 promises. Even one day of real effort is more powerful than a year of flawless plans. Let your silence build pressure. Let your stillness sharpen your edge. When you move, let it be so clean, so decisive, that no explanation is needed. Let the results be your language. Let the world find out when it's already too late to doubt you. Don't leak. Don't speak. Just move. Because movement, not noise, is what makes your dream real. Protect what hasn't matured. Your goals are like fruit on a tree. They need time. Time to form, to mature, to ripen into something nourishing. You can't force the process. You can't rush it, and you certainly can't parade it before it's ready. pick fruit too early, and what could have been sweet becomes sour. Expose it to the wrong elements too soon, and it withers. Not because it lacked promise, but because it lacked protection. The same is true of your dreams, your ambitions, your quiet visions that flicker in the early light of your becoming. They are not yet strong. They are not yet whole. And the world, impatient and noisy, does not wait for things to bloom before it judges them. There is a kind of violence in sharing too soon. A violence not always loud or intentional, but destructive nonetheless. You speak your dream before it has found its legs, and suddenly it becomes vulnerable to opinions, misinterpretations, and casual criticisms from people who were never meant to understand it. They question the shape of it. They challenge the value. And worst of all, you start to listen. You start to adjust the blueprint, not because you saw a flaw, but because you saw their doubt. That is how the dream begins to rot. Not from within, but from what you allowed in too early. The early stages of any worthy pursuit are fragile. They are tender and unsure, even if you pretend otherwise. They require silence, not spotlight. They demand repetition, not recognition. They call for deep reflection, not external validation. What you are building needs your presence, not your performance. But so many people, intoxicated by the idea of support, rush to share. They open the door too early. They seek applause before they've built something that can endure critique. And in doing so, they interrupt their own process, not because they were incapable, but because they were impatient. Patience is not passive, it's protective. It says, I will not let this be judged before it is ready. I will not let the world handle what is still forming. Think of a loaf of bread rising in the oven. It is quiet work, invisible, but essential. If you open the door too early, the heat escapes, the structure collapses, and the bread, full of potential, becomes flat. Not because you lacked skill, but because you lacked stillness. The maturity of a goal is no different. It cannot be rushed. It must be watched, guarded, and given time. What if you could keep your progress safe, hidden from the wind and noise, until it is strong enough to stand on its own? What if you trusted the process enough to let it unfold without the need to constantly prove it exists? Imagine you're raising a hawk, a fierce and majestic creature, but delicate at first. It doesn't hatch ready to soar. Its wings are soft, its muscles weak. Would you throw it into a storm and hope it figures it out mid-air? No, you would train it in silence. Feed it, watch it, let it fall and try again, away from the crowd, away from danger. Only when it's strong enough, sharp enough, fast enough, would you let it fly into the open sky, and then no one could touch it. Your dream is that hawk. Your ideas are not yet armored against the indifference and criticism of the world. They need a season of training, a season of silence. Let your solitude be your shelter. Let your obscurity be your incubator. While others chase the spotlight, you build strength in the shadows. You sharpen your focus. You learn, you get better, not louder. You repeat your efforts, not your announcement. There will come a time for unveiling, a time when what you've built can walk into the wind and not bend. But until then, respect the process enough to leave it alone. Let it live within you like a secret too sacred to speak. Let it grow without interference. Because when it's ready, it will not need an introduction. Its presence will be enough. The world is not kind to half-finished things. It doesn't pause to nurture what it doesn't understand. It praises the polished, not the potential. That's why you must protect yours. You must become the guardian of your own ripening. If others don't understand your silence, let them wonder. If they ask what you're working on, let your life show them later. Right now, your responsibility is to the roots, not the fruit. This is your season of becoming, of unseen work, of unshared progress. This is where the real growth happens, not in the display, but in the dark. Not in the talking, but in the doing. So stay quiet, stay focused, stay disciplined. Tend to your vision like a gardener with something rare and powerful in the soil. And when it's ready, when it has matured in silence and been forged by your consistency, then the world can see it, not before. Until then, let your silence be strength. Let your patience be protection. Let your discipline be the sunlight it grows beneath. Because nothing truly great was ever rushed, and nothing truly yours needs to be proven, only finished. Work done in silence echoes the loudest. You don't need a crowd to do great work. You never did. The truth is, some of the most extraordinary creations the world has ever seen were shaped in the dark, far from praise, far from applause, far from the eyes of an audience. That's where greatness begins. Not in the spotlight, but in silence. Not in the arena, but in the workshop. Not surrounded by cheers, but surrounded by tools, effort, and solitude. Because when you're not performing, you're improving. When you're not caught up in how things look, you're free to focus on how things are. Silence isn't a void, it's a forge. It forces you to measure yourself not by the noise you generate, but by the discipline you uphold. Without the pressure to entertain, you become free to elevate. Without the burden of being seen, you're free to become someone worth seeing. That's the paradox of mastery. It grows best in places no one thinks to look. The man who works in silence has an invisible advantage. He is underestimated, so he moves without interference. He is undistracted, so his focus is razor sharp. He is unnoticed until his work is so refined, so undeniable that the world can't help but take notice. By then, it's too late for the critics, too late for the doubters, because his craft speaks for him, and it speaks louder than any introduction ever could. You don't need to announce your greatness. Let your results walk into the room before you do. Let them shake the ground gently. Let them command attention without demanding it. The moment you stop needing to be seen is the moment your power multiplies. Because when you're doing it for the work, not the recognition, your energy becomes pure, focused, relentless, and no amount of silence can diminish the force of what you're building. Ask yourself, would I still do this if no one ever clapped? Would you wake up early, grind quietly, correct your mistakes, and refine your craft if no one ever saw the effort? That question matters, because if your answer is yes, I'd still do it, then you've already separated yourself from the crowd. Most people chase admiration. Most people want to be seen working more than they want to be great. But the real ones are sculpting in the shadows. They're carving excellence from silence. Imagine a craftsman in his workshop. The room is dim. The tools are old but trusted. Day after day, he returns to the same table. He carves, he sands, he polishes. No one's watching, no one's clapping. There's no music but the rhythm of his effort. People pass him by, unaware. Some wonder if he's wasting his time, but he says nothing. He doesn't invite them in. He doesn't ask for approval, because he knows he's not done yet. And then one day, he walks into the light and places his creation before the world. It's breathtaking. It's flawless. People gasp. They can't look away. They ask where it came from, but he doesn't need to explain. The silence that shaped it now speaks for it. That is the power of silent work. It doesn't beg to be noticed. It demands it when it's ready. And by then your work will speak in a voice that no doubt can drown out. When you build in silence, you build stronger. You're not rushed by expectations or warped by opinions. You have space to fail, space to adjust, space to learn. And that is where real progress lives, not in public declarations, but in private repetitions. Not in talking about potential, but in proving it to yourself, day after day, when no one is around. Let your silence echo. Let it grow roots so deep that by the time the world sees the leaves, the tree is already unshakable. Let it whisper in every stroke of your brush, every line of your code, every swing of your hammer. Do not waste your effort trying to be impressive. Use it to become impressive. Because silence is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of work in motion. It's the hush before the masterpiece, the stillness before the storm, the preparation that makes triumph inevitable. So stay low, stay locked in, build quietly, and when it's time, when the foundation is steady, the work is ready, and the world is watching, you won't need to say a word. They'll see it in your results. They'll feel it in your presence. You were not made to be noise. You were made to be impact. And real impact doesn't shout, it lasts. So get back to the workshop. Let the world wonder. Let your silence sharpen your edge. Let your work speak after you're done. Because when you're focused on becoming excellent, not on being noticed, you become unforgettable. People remember what you do, not what you say. You may have noticed something peculiar about people. Their memories are selective. They may nod when you speak. They may applaud your passion. They may even encourage your vision. But give it time, and they'll forget what you said. They always do. Words, no matter how eloquent or loud, eventually fade. What they don't forget, what burns itself into their memory, is what you did, what you built, what you became. You can spend your days telling the world about your ambitions. You can explain your vision in a dozen different ways. You can talk about your plans, your drive, your discipline. You can fill the air with the sound of potential. But if those words aren't matched with action, real, visible, measurable action, they dissolve into dust. Like smoke in the wind, they vanish. Because the world doesn't run on promises, it runs on proof. What endures, what truly lasts, is not the speech, but the structure. Not the intention, but the impact. What people respect isn't how clearly you describe your dream, it's how consistently you build it. We live in a world bloated with talkers, people who sound strong but move softly, people who declare goals but dodge effort. And in that world, the person who moves with quiet certainty, whose work appears before their words ever do, that person earns real power. If you want to be remembered, don't speak louder, don't post more, don't perform belief. Move better. Let your decisions be so sharp, so intentional, that no one needs to ask what you're about. Let your results carry weight, not because you hype them, but because they exist, they function, they solve, they shine. Every word you speak should be a reflection of something already finished. something that lives in the world and proves itself without defense. If you're constantly explaining what's going to happen, if your language is filled with someday and almost and soon, then ask yourself this: are you writing checks with your mouth that your hands haven't earned? It's easy to say you're disciplined, easy to say you're focused, easy to say you're working hard, but those words are hollow unless backed by evidence. You can claim strength all day long, but can you show it? You can describe your craft in beautiful detail, but where is the product? Where is the fruit of your effort? Imagine a man who says he's a blacksmith. He tells you about the heat of the forge, the feel of the hammer, the resistance of the metal. The words are rich with detail. He speaks as if he lives and breathes his work. But you look around, there are no tools, no smoke, no sparks, no steel. Nothing has been shaped. Nothing has been made. Do you believe him? Of course not, because instinctively we all know the difference between performance and presence, between intention and creation, between echo and footprint. You can echo greatness with your voice, or you can leave a mark with your work. One fades, the other endures. People want legacy, but they forget what legacy is made of. It's not made of speeches or plans or likes or shares. It's made of results, tangible outcomes, finished things. And those things aren't built in conversations. They're built in consistency, in sweat, in trial, in solitude, over and over again. The world is full of noise, promises shouted into the void, declarations made before anything has been earned. But there's something different about the person who doesn't explain, just executes, who doesn't market themselves, just makes something that matters. That's the person others remember. That's the person whose silence commands more respect than another's speech. So stop wasting time trying to convince others of who you are. Show them. Show them in how you show up. Show them in what you finish. Show them in how little you need to say, because the results speak for you. You want to be respected? Become useful. Become undeniable. Become the person who doesn't need a spotlight, because their presence is enough. Let your results walk into the room before you do. Let your work speak so clearly that even your enemies can't argue with it. And when someone brings up your name, let there be proof attached to it. Not vague potential, not half-executed dreams, but real footprints, a real trail of value that stands even when you're not in the room to defend it. Because talk is temporary. It rises fast and fades just as quickly. But action? Action is permanent. It stays behind. It continues to work long after you've stopped speaking. It becomes the bridge others walk across. It becomes the evidence that outlives the voice. So speak less, build more. Replace description with demonstration. Stop narrating your potential and start producing results. And the next time you feel tempted to explain your greatness, pause, look down at your hands, ask yourself what they've earned, what they've built, and let that answer shape your next move. Because when it's all said and done, people won't remember what you said you'd do. They'll remember what got done. So leave footprints, not echoes. Let your legacy be something they can stand on, not just something they once heard about. You don't need to be understood. You need to be relentless. Too often you speak because you crave to be understood. You share your plans, your routines, your sacrifices, not to boast, but to be acknowledged, to be validated. You want the people around you to get it, to say they believe in you, to recognize the weight of what you're carrying and the direction you're heading. But here's the hard truth. Understanding is not required. It never was. If you're waiting for the world to understand you before you begin, you'll be waiting forever. And while you're waiting, the days pass, the fire cools, and the dream that once felt alive begins to shrink under the weight of other people's doubt. You must learn this early. Relentlessness matters more than understanding. What fuels your future is not how clearly you can explain yourself. It's how firmly you can continue when no one claps, when no one nods, when no one understands what you're doing or why you're doing it. People will not always see your vision. They may not understand your silence. They may not relate to your early mornings, your constant focus, your absence from the places you used to be. That's fine. They're not supposed to understand. It's not their mission. It's yours. And yet we burn so much energy trying to give people a guided tour of our mind. We explain our work ethic, our strategy, our long nights and early starts. We try to make them see it, hoping their agreement will somehow make it all more valid. But you don't owe anyone that access. You don't need permission to move. You don't need approval to be disciplined. You don't need an audience to justify your direction. You owe yourself one thing and one thing only: the completion of the mission. Imagine a traveler crossing a vast desert. The sun is harsh. The sand stretches endlessly in every direction. He walks alone day after day, blistered and tired but focused. Behind him are people who watch from a distance. They scoff. They shake their heads. Where's he even going? They ask. There's nothing out there. Some say it's foolish. Others say it's dangerous. Most simply don't get it. But the traveler doesn't stop to explain. He doesn't turn around to argue. He doesn't pause to draw a map or prove the existence of the oasis. He just walks, step after step, because he knows the oasis is real even if they've never seen it. even if they never believe it exists. That is the kind of conviction you need. Quiet, certain, unshaken by misunderstanding. Because you are not here to convert doubters. You are here to arrive. You will be misunderstood. Accept that. Some people will misread your silence as arrogance, your focus as distance, your discipline as obsession. Let them. Your job is not to translate your fire into terms they can digest. Your job is to burn regardless. The right people will see it eventually. Not because you explained it, but because your results revealed it. But by then, their understanding won't matter, because you will have already become. Let go of the need to be understood. It's a heavy chain. It slows you down. It keeps you explaining when you should be executing. It keeps you defending your path when you should be moving along it. Understand this. If your energy goes into convincing others, it's not going into creating. And every ounce spent narrating your life is an ounce stolen from living it. You don't need to prove the value of your routine to the ones who sleep in. You don't need to justify your grind to the ones who are idle. You don't need to explain your silence to those who never learned how to listen. Your life is not a public debate. It's a private mission. And not every step needs commentary. Some steps just need to be taken. Obsession to others often looks like madness. Dedication looks like distance. Greatness, in its early stages, often looks like loneliness. That's part of the price. If you're going to do something rare, you must stop expecting common minds to understand it. You must walk forward, even when no one walks with you. You must stay the course, even when the course gets quiet. You must keep building, even when the crowd has turned away. And when you arrive, when the thing you saw in your mind becomes real in your hands, you won't need to explain anything. The results will speak. The vision will prove itself. The oasis will bloom. And all the noise that once pulled at your sleeves will fall silent. Because once you've done the work, once the thing is finished, nothing else needs to be said. So carry your silence like a shield. Carry your focus like a weapon. Let your journey be your answer. Let your discipline be your language. You don't have time to pause and seek approval. You have work to do, a mission to finish, a desert to cross. Be relentless. Be misunderstood. Be unstoppable. Your vision isn't for everyone. What you carry inside you, the vision, the pull, the sharp, unwavering picture of your destination is yours. No one else sees it the way you do. No one else can, not the crowd, not your peers, not even the people who love you most. Because what you see isn't just a goal. It's a culmination of everything you've lived through. The pain you endured, the lessons that marked you, the hunger that never left your bones. Those things shaped what you now feel called to build. You see details others will never catch. You feel the weight of its importance in a way no one else could understand. You dream with urgency because you know what it cost to even believe this thing was possible. But here's where the mistake begins. You speak that vision aloud. You offer it up like a gift, hoping others will treat it with the same reverence. You assume they'll see it clearly, feel its magnitude, sense its inevitability. But they don't. They can't. They weren't in the room when the vision first called your name. They weren't there in the sleepless nights when you wrestled with doubt. They didn't feel the fire that burned inside you when the world told you to settle. So when they hear your dream, what they hear is just words, disconnected from context, stripped of spirit. And their response? A shrug, a joke, a suggestion to be more realistic, or worse, polite support that masks disbelief. And then something happens inside you. Discouragement seeps in, not because your dream has changed, but because their reaction has shaken you. You start to question yourself. You hesitate. You replay the conversation in your mind and wonder why they didn't get it. But the fault wasn't in their hearing. It was in your sharing. There's a truth most builders learn too late. Your vision is not up for public consumption. It is not a performance. It is not a vote. It is a private covenant between you and the fire that refuses to die. The more you explain it to those who can't see, the more you cheapen it, the more you invite misunderstanding, and the more you risk trading progress for approval. The greatest builders in history didn't stop to explain themselves. They didn't pause their work to gather consensus. They didn't wait for a round of applause before picking up the next stone. They simply built, quietly, one piece at a time. They kept their head down, their hearts steady, and their hands moving. And only after the structure stood, only after the result could speak for itself, did the world come close enough to see what had been done. You must learn from them. Stop pausing your journey to get others to understand your map. Stop handing your blueprint to people who've never built anything themselves. If they weren't called to walk the same road, how can they possibly recognize the destination? Some paths are meant for your feet alone. Some visions are meant to be protected like sacred ground, cultivated in silence until the fruit can speak louder than any plan ever could. Ask yourself honestly, have you delayed your work just to explain your direction to people who are never meant to walk beside you? Have you doubted your steps because someone with no vision questioned the journey? Have you traded motion for conversation, momentum for commentary? Imagine a man who sails beyond the known horizon. He risks everything, fights storms, follows stars, and finally he lands on a new shore, vibrant, rich, untouched. He returns to his village, heart pounding with excitement, eager to share the discovery. But when he speaks, they laugh. They've never seen such a place, so they assume it cannot exist. There's nothing beyond the sea, they say. Everyone knows that. And in that moment, the man must choose. Abandon the land he's seen or build it. That's your choice, too. You can keep trying to explain the ocean to people who've never left the shore. Or you can go back and begin construction, stone by stone, quietly, focused, sure. Because the truth is, your work will always be more persuasive than your words. Your discipline will say more than your declarations, and your results will become the loudest proof you ever offer. Stop explaining, start building. Not because you're trying to prove something, but because you were born to construct something only you can see. Let the bystanders remain confused. That's what bystanders do. They watch, they talk, they guess, but you build. This isn't about ego, it's about responsibility. If the vision lives in you, it is your job to bring it to life. Not to convince the world it's real, not to hold town hall meetings about whether it's worthy, but to build it until it becomes undeniable, until even the ones who once doubted can stand before it in awe, saying nothing, because there's nothing left to say. So carry your vision like a sacred ember, shield it from the wind, nurture it in the quiet, and give it the space to grow without the constant need to be understood. You don't need applause to begin, you don't need agreement to continue, and you certainly don't need permission to finish. Build, because it is yours to build, not theirs to approve. Loose lips cost progress. It's not just that you slow down when you talk too much, it's that you begin to leak. The very fuel, the very fire, the very momentum that was meant to move you forward begins to seep out in the form of words. Words that feel powerful, that sound committed, that give the illusion of progress, but don't build anything real. That moment when you share your plans, your ambitions, your next big step, and someone nods or claps or admires your boldness, that moment is dangerous because it rewards you with a feeling of accomplishment without any of the substance. You walk away feeling like something has happened, like movement has begun. But in truth, all you've done is open the valve, let the pressure out. The urgency that once pulsed in your chest now lies scattered in casual conversation. You told the story of what you'll do instead of writing it with action. Spoken words are not bricks. They do not lay the foundation. They do not lift the weight. They don't build the wall or pave the road. Silent labor does. We live in a world obsessed with visibility. There's a pressure to announce everything, to declare your goals, your changes, your next chapter. It feels like unless you proclaim it, it isn't real. But the truth is the opposite. The more you announce, the more you expose your intentions to forces that can dilute them. Doubt, mockery, misunderstanding, unsolicited advice, and worse, premature validation. The claps you get for a plan not yet executed can kill your momentum. They satisfy the ego before the soul has earned it. Each time you talk about what you'll do, you risk not doing it at all. Not because you're weak or lazy, but because the need for approval can replace the hunger for achievement. You begin to confuse speaking from moving. You think you've taken a step forward, but really you've stood still, just louder. What if the reason your momentum fades isn't because you failed or lacked talent or weren't ready, but because you talked too much? What if your best energy was lost in describing your vision instead of pursuing it? That's not just theory, it's a pattern. The more you narrate your future, the less mystery it holds. And mystery is powerful. It's what fuels focus. It's what keeps the world guessing and keeps you going. Imagine this. You're at the base of a mountain. High above, nestled between the rocks, is a spring of the clearest, coldest water. You carry a clay jar up the steep path, knowing how valuable what you're collecting will be. You fill it carefully, feeling its weight in your hands. On the way down, people stop you. They ask what you found. Curious, some skeptical. And each time you tip the jar just a little to show them. A sip here, a splash there. A moment of pride, a bit of proof. But by the time you reach your land, your hands are light. The jar is empty. The spring is real. Your effort was real. But now there is nothing to pour. That's what happens when you overshare. The things you're building need to be carried, not displayed. They need time to grow in silence. You can't show the roots and expect the fruit to flourish. There's a power in secrecy, a strength in silence, a sharpness that only forms when no one is watching. Let your goals mature in the shadows, away from the noise, away from the opinions, away from the temptation to talk before you've done. Your hands must speak for you, not your voice, because hands don't lie. They don't inflate. They don't seek applause. They simply produce. They show up. They create. They carry the weight and leave behind evidence, a finished book. a carved sculpture, a thriving business, a transformed life. Let your results arrive without explanation. Let your work walk into the room first. There's a reason why the most successful people are often the quietest while they're working. Not because they have nothing to say, but because they understand the cost of saying it too soon. They know that silence sharpens focus, that privacy protects the process, that real progress doesn't need a narrator. You have to choose. Do you want to talk about your life or build it? Do you want to keep tipping your jar to the side, showing bits of what might be? Or do you want to protect it, preserve it, and arrive with something full, something real, something undeniable? You're not here to perform ambition. You're here to realize it. You're not here to impress the bystanders. You're here to serve the mission. And that mission deserves your full attention, not your fragmented words. So protect your momentum like it's gold. Guard it. Hold it close. When people ask, smile and keep moving. When they guess, let them. When they doubt, let your silence be your answer. Because if you're serious about your future, then let your labor be louder than your language. Let your hands do the talking. Let the finished work echo through the world long after the noise has died down. Your vision is sacred. Don't waste it on applause. Build until the results speak without you. When you speak, you surrender. Control is often misunderstood. People think it means dominance, force, or the ability to bend others to your will. But real control has nothing to do with others. It has everything to do with you. It's not about domination. It's about ownership of your time, of your energy, of your thoughts and direction. It's the quiet power that says, I know where I'm going, and I know how I want to get there. And every time you speak too soon, every time you reveal the next step of your journey before it's fully formed, you hand that control to someone else. You do it without realizing. You think you're sharing, being open, seeking connection, or maybe encouragement, but in that moment, you invite interference. You give people access to something delicate, something not yet ready to be weighed or questioned. You open the gates, and in come the comments, the confusion, the doubts, sometimes subtle, sometimes loud, and suddenly the clear vision you carried inside starts to blur, not because you lack clarity, but because you surrendered it before it was strong enough to stand alone. Why would you hand over something you've only just begun to shape? Why expose a blueprint that still lives mostly in your mind, where even a slight push could knock it off course? That's what happens when you share too early. You shift roles. You move from being the creator, the one who acts for the sake of the work itself, to becoming the performer. Now, instead of building with your soul, you're editing for someone else's comfort. Instead of following your own compass, you adjust your steps so they make sense to people who aren't even walking with you. And you might not notice it at first. It feels innocent, harmless, a conversation here, a suggestion there. But those little moments start to pile up. A seed of doubt, a second guess, a compromise. Before long, you look up and realize you're not even walking your road anymore. You're walking a road you carved to accommodate someone else's opinion. You didn't lose your path through failure. You lost it through feedback. Feedback you never needed. Feedback you never asked for. Feedback that came not because your idea was weak, but because you opened the door too early. You might think you're being humble, collaborative, inclusive. But what you're really doing is leaking, bleeding, control, handing out pieces of your direction in exchange for nods that will never sustain you when things get difficult. And they will get difficult. Every vision that's worth building will meet resistance, challenge, and uncertainty. When that moment comes, only clarity will carry you through. Not agreement, not applause. Clarity. And clarity cannot survive when it's constantly being watered down by other people's comfort zones. Imagine painting a canvas. You're deep in the process. Each brush stroke intentional, each color carefully chosen. It's your work, your expression, your truth. But as you paint, people pass by. One says, make it blue. Another says, no, green is better. Someone else says, it should be more abstract. And another adds, it's too messy, clean it up. You listen. You try to make them happy. You tweak, you adjust, you erase and repaint. And by the end, the canvas is no longer yours. It's no longer even art. It's noise, a collection of disconnected choices, a crowd's confusion. That is what happens when you hand over your direction too soon. You think you're being thoughtful, but you're giving the steering wheel to a crowd that has no idea where you're going. They can't see the final picture. They don't feel what you feel. They don't carry the why that keeps you moving, and they never will, because the vision lives in you, not in them. You must learn to guard your work, guard your intent, guard your pace, not from malice, but from misunderstanding. Not because people mean harm, but because they simply cannot see what you see, and they shouldn't have to. Your mission isn't theirs to interpret, it's yours to complete. You have to protect the space where your ideas are born. You have to preserve the freedom to move without explaining, to create without justifying, to build without adjusting for people who aren't building anything themselves. That's what ownership looks like. It's not defensive. It's not selfish, it's sacred, it's quiet, it's discipline. The greatest things in life, the things that change you, the things that define you, don't grow in rooms full of opinions. They grow in silence, in solitude, in that narrow, private place where it's just you and the work, just you and the reason. And in that place, you don't need anyone to understand. You just need to keep going. When the time is right, the world will see it. When the work is finished, the result will speak in a voice louder than any plan ever could. That's when it's time to share. Not when it's delicate, but when it's ready. Not when you need permission, but when you've built something undeniable. Until then, your silence is not absence. It is alignment. It is protection. It is power. Own your silence. It's not just a lack of words. It's your steering wheel. It's how you stay in control when everything around you tries to pull you off course. It's how you protect your progress, your clarity, your calling. It's how you make sure your direction remains yours. So the next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, pause. The next time you want to share your next step, ask yourself, is this mine to speak or mine to build? Let your answer be your protection. Because control isn't about holding everything tightly. It's about holding the right things sacredly. And your vision deserves nothing less. You don't need to talk. You need to transform. There comes a point in your journey where no explanation, no speech, no declaration can carry the weight of what you're truly becoming. That moment arrives quietly, without fanfare. It's not marked by applause or approval. It's marked by silence. The silence that follows all the talking, all the justifying, all the trying to be understood. You've told people your plans. You've explained your struggles. You've shared your hopes like offerings, hoping they'd be received with grace. But now that time has passed. The words have done what they could. What remains is the becoming. Transformation doesn't ask for witnesses. The seed buried in the dirt doesn't ask the earth to celebrate its sprouting. The seed simply breaks silently in the dark. It struggles upward through soil and stone without saying a word. And still it grows. The night turns to day with no proclamation. The stars don't ask for praise when they disappear, nor does the sun demand attention as it rises. Nature transforms with quiet certainty. So too must you, not with announcements, but with action. Not by telling others you've changed, but by changing. There is a kind of strength that is not loud. It does not announce itself. It builds in stillness. It sharpens in solitude. And when it arrives, it doesn't need to be introduced. It simply is. But most people never get there. Not because they're weak, not because they don't want it, but because they're too caught up in the need to narrate their growth instead of living it. They pause the process to talk about the process. They tell everyone what they're about to become, what they're fixing, what they've realized, and in doing so, they leak energy. The momentum that was meant to carry them inward begins to drift outward. Instead of diving into change, they perform it. Instead of being still enough to transform, they become restless, chasing validation, reassurance, attention. And the change never takes root because it was never protected in silence. It was never allowed to mature in the dark. Ask yourself something difficult and honest. What if the world's opinion of you never changed? What if they never believed you were evolving? Would you still transform? Would you still wake up and walk the hard road, even if no one acknowledged your effort? That's the real test, because transformation is not about convincing the world. It's about confronting yourself. And that confrontation often happens alone, where no one is watching. Imagine a caterpillar trying to explain its future wings. It tries to describe flight to those who've only ever crawled. It tries to explain colors that haven't yet formed. No one believes it. How could they? It looks like what it's always been, small, earthbound, limited. But then, the caterpillar does the only thing it can do. It stops talking. It enters the cocoon alone, uncelebrated, silent. And in that space, confined, still, and unseen, it changes. That is the place where you are remade, not on the stage, not in the spotlight, but in the cocoon, the unseen place, the place where you stop trying to describe what's coming and start becoming it. And when the cocoon opens, there is no need for a speech. The wings are the speech. The flight is the proof. The transformation reveals itself without explanation because it is undeniable. Be the cocoon, not the conversation. Let the work happen within. Let the silence stretch long enough for change to take root. Let go of the need to be recognized for the work and focus only on doing the work. Protect your evolution from eyes that don't yet see and ears that don't truly hear. You owe the world nothing until the work is done. There is a sacredness to private progress, a purity in knowing that your growth is yours alone, not shaped by the feedback of others, but by the fire you walk through in solitude. When you stop performing change and start surrendering to it, something powerful happens. You begin to grow in a way that cannot be undone. The roots go deeper. The structure becomes solid. You're no longer building for applause. You're building because it's who you are becoming. This is your metamorphosis. Not a speech, not a presentation, not a curated display of effort. It's the moment you stop telling the world who you are and let your life show it instead. It's the discipline to fall quiet, to disappear from the noise, and to rise only when the work is undeniable. And make no mistake, when that moment comes, it will not need explanation. The people who once questioned you will fall silent, not because you convinced them, but because your results spoke louder than you ever could. The ones who doubted won't need an apology. The wings will speak for themselves. The journey, revealed only in hindsight, will have made perfect sense, though no one understood it while it was happening. Let them wonder, let them doubt, let them write their opinions in the dust behind you. Your focus is not to explain your path, your focus is to walk it with quiet intensity, with sacred conviction, with your eyes fixed on the version of you that's waiting at the other side of the cocoon. So if you feel the pull to talk, to prove, to convince, pause. Feel that energy and redirect it inward. Take every word you would have spoken and let it become a step, a repetition, a refinement, a deeper breath in the dark. That is how you rise. That is how you become. Because the next chapter of your life is not something you say, it's something you live. It's not written in captions or conversations. It's written in effort, in silence, in unshakable movement toward the person you know you're meant to be. You are not here to be explained. You are here to become undeniable. So enter the cocoon. Let the work reshape you. When it's time, your wings will say everything that needs to be said. Keep your fire from the wind. A fire just beginning to burn is delicate. It flickers with uncertainty, easily swayed by the slightest breath of air. One gust, just one, can put it out before it ever becomes heat, before it warms anything, before it even knows what it could have become. And this right here is what happens when you speak too early about what you're building, your dream, your plan, your next chapter. It begins as a fragile spark inside you. It glows in private moments. It flickers in silence. And though it may be small, it's real, it's alive, it's yours, but it's not ready yet. Not ready for exposure, not ready for pressure, not ready for the cold air of outside opinion. In the beginning, your vision is tender, not weak, but unfinished. It hasn't yet hardened into certainty. You're still learning how to carry it, how to feed it, how to breathe with it. You're trying to understand it yourself. And that's the moment most people speak. Not out of arrogance, but out of hope. They share the flicker with the world and hope the world will be gentle. But the world is rarely gentle. The world doesn't nurture fire, it tests it. You must learn to protect the flame. You must recognize the early stages for what they are, sacred, silent, and vulnerable. It's not the time to open the door and invite everyone in. It's the time to close it, to crouch over the spark, to shield it with your body, your focus, your discipline. Let it catch, let it take hold, let it become a source of heat for you before you ever try to make it one for others. Because the world won't warm your fire, it will blow at it. It will question the heat, it will challenge the light. Not always with malice, sometimes with curiosity, sometimes with doubt, sometimes with fear disguised as advice. But every voice, every glance, every stray word carries weight. And if your fire isn't strong enough, if your belief isn't rooted deeply enough, you'll take their resistance as a reason to quit. You'll hear their hesitation louder than your own conviction, and you'll begin to wonder if the spark ever mattered at all. This is not because your dream was wrong, it's because it was too early to withstand judgment, too early to hold up under scrutiny. It hadn't been fed enough yet by your own effort, hadn't been tested by your own quiet commitment, and so it died, not from failure, but from exposure. Ask yourself this, with brutal honesty, is your dream burning strong, or are you showing it to the storm before it's ready? Are you speaking before the fire has formed into something unshakable? Are you letting your desire to be understood outweigh your duty to protect what you're becoming? Think of the woodsman. He's in the middle of a storm. Rain is falling. The sky is heavy. But he knows he needs fire, not just to stay warm, but to survive. He kneels down, hands calloused, eyes sharp. He gathers the driest twigs he can find. He clears a space in the dirt, but he doesn't strike the match and leave it open to the rain. No, he builds a shelter, a small structure with bark and branches to shield the spark from the elements. Only once it's safe, once it's protected, does he strike the flame. It flickers, yes, but it holds. He cups his hands around it. He feeds it patiently until the flame grows, until it becomes more than a flicker, until it becomes fire. You must do the same. You must build your shelter in the storm. Don't rush. Don't show the world your fire while it's still vulnerable. Build your foundation. Strengthen your focus. Grow your discipline like kindling. Let your commitment serve as the structure that shields what you're making, because only then, only when it burns hot enough on its own, will it be able to withstand the wind. There's no shame in silence. There's power in it. Power in waiting. Power in feeding your vision behind closed doors. Every moment you don't speak of it but work on it, your fire grows. Every time you choose to build instead of broadcast, the spark becomes more stable. You don't owe the world a preview. You owe yourself the proof. People love to celebrate finished fires, bonfires glowing in the night, warmth radiating outward, light seen for miles. But those same people often laughed at the spark, doubted the hands that struck the match, mocked the time it took to build the shelter. And yet, without that care, without that protection, the fire never would have come alive. So stay silent, not forever, but for now. Let your ambition live quietly, fed by your own breath. Let it become your warmth first. Let it burn hot enough that no voice can extinguish it. And when it's ready, truly ready, you won't need to show it. It will show itself. It will radiate through everything you touch. It will be seen, not explained. It will be felt, not defended. Because by then, your fire will not just survive the wind. It will bend the wind. It will roar against it. And no storm will be able to touch what you've built in the quiet. So protect your spark. Let it grow where only you can see it. Guard your beginnings. Honor your process. Let silence be your shelter until the fire becomes untouchable. And when the time comes, when your fire is undeniable, then the world will see, not because you told them, but because the flame speaks for itself. Your results are the only story you need. When it's all said and done, when the dust of conversation settles and the noise of opinion fades, people won't remember what you meant to do. They won't recall the dreams you described in detail or the plans you outlined with conviction. They won't even remember how passionate you sounded when you talk about your vision. They will remember what you built. The thing that exists because you decided to show up when no one clapped. The result that now stands tall, not because it was announced, but because it was completed. That's what remains. That's what echoes. Not the promise, but the proof. It's a hard truth in a world obsessed with narrative. We've grown accustomed to sharing every step, posting intentions, broadcasting beginnings, narrating plans, and yet none of it matters without execution. The world isn't short on stories, it's drowning in them. Every person you meet has an idea. Every mouth carries ambition. Every voice has something to say about the future. But the world isn't asking for more declarations. It's starving for demonstration. And here's the secret the silent builders know. Real achievement rarely makes noise on the way up. It happens in early mornings, quiet nights, private decisions no one sees. It's not glamorous, it's not dramatic, it's consistent. It's boring, even. It's the relentless return to the work, the refusal to quit, the discipline to keep laying bricks even when no one is watching. And eventually, one day, people look up and there it is. A bridge, a tower, a book, a business, a life. Real, useful, undeniable. You don't have to tell the world you're disciplined. Be disciplined. You don't need to explain the greatness inside you. Build something that reveals it without words. That's the irony of legacy. The more time you spend talking about what it will be, the less time you spend creating something worth remembering. Let them wonder. Let them guess. Let them fill in the blanks with whatever stories they need to. Meanwhile, you keep building. Quietly, ruthlessly, with your head down and your eyes focused. Let them think you've disappeared until what you've created is too large to be ignored. Until they stand in awe, not of what you promised, but of what you produce. Imagine this, you walk into a village. You say nothing, you wear no title, you bring no announcement. But behind you stands a bridge, stone by stone, built by your hands. It connects two worlds, it holds weight. People walk across it every day, and no one asks you to explain how it happened. They don't need to. The bridge speaks for you. It is your biography, your story told in stone, a monument that exists not because you told them you could do it, but because you did. This is the difference between those who dream and those who deliver. Talkers try to be understood. Builders let their work be undeniable. And it is only the second group that creates impact that lasts beyond themselves. You don't owe the world your dreams. You don't need to provide a running commentary of your hopes and strategies. You owe the world your discipline, your execution, your results. It's easy to be inspired, easy to be motivated, but it's what you make real that defines you. Because the truth is, most people don't remember the ones who spoke the loudest. They remember the ones who left something behind, the ones who quietly and persistently shaped reality, until their presence could not be denied. And if you're waiting for permission, stop. If you're looking for understanding, stop. If you're waiting for the perfect words to describe what you're becoming, stop. You don't need to narrate your transformation, you need to live it. You need to turn that internal flame into something external. You need to build until the finished product speaks louder than you ever could. A book doesn't need to explain why it was written. A building doesn't need to explain why it stands. A bridge doesn't need to justify its usefulness. They just exist. They just serve. They just endure. That's the kind of life you must build. One that doesn't beg for validation. One that doesn't seek attention. One that, when people see it, leaves them because they know this was not easy. This was not luck. This was labor, real, disciplined labor. So let your results be your biography. Let your legacy do the talking. And until then, say less, Post less, announce less, and do more. Speak only when it's time to present what's been done, not what you hope to do, not what you're planning to begin, but what is complete, what is real, what is finished. Because when the final chapter is written, the world won't cite your intentions, it will cite your impact. It won't revisit your declarations, it will revisit your deliverables. And the most powerful message you'll ever send is what you leave behind, not in words, but in the work. Be remembered not for what you said you would build, but for what you did. Let your name be attached not to noise, but to something solid, something lasting, something that generations can point to and say, that was real, that mattered, that changed things. Your life is not a performance, it is a project. And one day, people will look not at your promises, but at what stands because of you. Make sure it stands. Remember, not everything needs to be shared. The strongest people move in silence, build in private, and let the world feel their impact, not hear their updates. Protect your vision from unnecessary voices. Guard your growth like treasure. The less you explain, the more powerful you become. So from this day forward, speak less and do more. Let your actions echo louder than words ever could. Because true strength isn't loud. It's quiet, focused, and keep building and let them wonder.